Okay, so welcome everyone to this last Share Anthropolis and the Future Cities Lab co-hosted seminar of our seminar series. We will also give you a summary of the whole seminar series in the next few days. So this will be a written document. So I'm quite happy about that as well. And it's really a great pleasure to have Flore Vallet presenting her work on designing an urban mobility serious game to teach radical innovation design. So I think it's work. We will tell us where this work comes from,
Yeah.
and it's partly related to the Share Anthropolis, but partly also not. So I don't know all of this stuff you will be presenting today, and we're very curious about it. So please, Flore, take the floor.
Thank you, Jakob, for the kind introduction. And it's really a pleasure to close this seminar series talking about this topic on designing serious games on urban mobility. So I will try to make it interactive. So hopefully everything will go well because I will switch at one stage to WooClap to make you play with us. Right, so just a bit of context, and now I have to move here. Yeah, just to introduce you to a few games that are related to either mobility or talking about the future. And you've got some examples here of board games and card games. For example, the mobility scenario game here on the left-hand side, or the urban game I had the opportunity to play a few years ago, which is called Robospective. And it was really a nice game to imagine the future of automated mobility, talking about imagining stories for personas. Other few examples of a card game called Mo Mobility, and you can find it on the internet, which is challenging a lot of cards that could challenge you to imagine the best futures for mobility or the worst, and try to discuss on these topics. And also, for instance, less gamified part, but also very interesting to imagine the urban design on the online. In this case, it's a digital kind of game, which is called Street Mix. You can also try and have a go on the internet. Right, so that was just to set the scene of this presentation about the context of the PhD, which is the support of this presentation I will talk about. Just a few words about serious games. I won't take much time. A few words about this method called radical innovation design and how we developed a serious game on urban mobility. And then let's play and conclusions and perspectives. So the context of the project is more specifically a PhD, which was defended on last April, PhD of Yiming Ma, who was a PhD student and now is a doctor of the Industrial Engineering Lab at Centrale Supélec. And his PhD was about designing serious game for more specifically teaching industrial engineering methodologies. And you can see on this graph, he started by observing several serious game activities, for example, on open innovation on the left. And he developed a serious game language to know what has to be designed in a serious game. Also developed the description of an engineering methodologies and the competencies that are to be encapsulated in the game. And finally, he developed a V model as you can see on the image, with several stages and layers to design the serious game for innovation engineering, whatever the type of game, either physical or digital. So just a few words. Serious game, it's a kind of game, but fun or entertainment is not the main purpose, because the purpose is to motivate people to learn, and it can be either physical or digital, although in this presentation we will focus on physical ones. And there are many pieces of literature to try to describe the elements of serious game design. But here I put forward one of the most famous, which is the Serious Game Design Assessment Framework, which proposes to distinguish what is the design purpose of the game, what is going to be the fiction, well, the story and the narrative of the game, which is the aesthetics, what are the mechanics we are going to use, and we are going to see that. We have game mechanics on the one hand and learning mechanics on the other hand. What are the information needed, and what is the global framing? So what has to be designed in a serious game? Yiming emphasized that to complement this framework, we need two important additional elements, which we called game props. Game props are, for example, the boards, the cards, the tokens. And it's also very important to think about the evaluation of the serious game and the outcomes. So here is a small example of what is behind these elements illustrated on the consortium games. So you can have cards providing information, for example, kind of characters or events happening, the game board here of consortium. And the evaluation is, for instance, a scoring board when you've got challenges and scores to be achieved. And the story, which has to be somehow captivating for the audience. So you have to connect to real life in order to provide an interesting story. And in this case, it was a specific story, but I will more detail our story for the Urban Mobility series game. So now, the objective of Yiming's PhD first application was to develop a game to teach this method called radical innovation design, which was developed at the lab and taught for several years. And we took the opportunity of teaching this method to develop innovation projects for the Anthropologist chair. Two of them were developed in 2016 and 17, Troticket and Moment. I will talk just a little bit of the second one. So basically, this innovation method is based on 4 parts. The most important part is the problem setting what are the problems we want to investigate. So developing knowledge in investigation, designing the problem in itself, and then defining what is going to be the ambition, the innovation ambition. And then second part, we're going to problem solving, which is designing the product and services, the architecture, the concept, and also designing, that's the blue part, the business models and the company organization for this innovation. So just to give you a small idea of what are the very important elements of this method, illustrated on this project Movement, which was supposed to develop a solutions for urban mobility and challenging sharing and also non-sharing users. So we started by defining with the students several user profiles. There were 10 of them. I won't go too much into details. And also detailing the usage situations that are really critical in urban mobility. You got some of them. And defining all the classes of problems that are really important for, in this case, for the sharing part, mobility. So, for example, lack of trust, lack of comfort, feeling of deprivation of freedom, etc. We also need to be very aware of the different classes of solutions that are possible and available nowadays. And then the idea is to uncover what we call value buckets, which are areas where there are a lot of problems for many users, which are up to date, don't have a proper solution. So we have this kind of areas we are very interested in. For example, the lack of knowledge of people about sharing, the feeling of insecurity, and the feeling of deprivation of freedom. And then in the method, we develop a usage scenario that is ideal, and then come up with solutions. In this case, we developed a solution for elderly people to call in a very non-tech savvy manner to call for a sharing mobility solution. And then they developed the business model. So here it's a kind of button you can see. Right, so that was just to introduce you to the main items we're going to speak about. And now to develop the serious game, just a few words, how we developed the content. Well, we took advantage of our knowledge in the Anthropolis chair about the classification of travel problems based on the work of Wael in his PhD, but also results from literature, from Susilo and Katz, for instance, who developed the travel profiles. So you've got some examples of traveler groups in the literature, which are really interesting, and also all the expectations they have. Depending on these traveler groups, it can vary a bit. It could be punctuality, safety, availability, cost, etc. So we propose classifications of problems. We define traveler profiles, which are categories of travelers who share some kind of similar behaviors, and they can be segmented across, according to different means. We define travel situations in urban areas, also relying on reports. For example, this French report for 2010, defining all the main activities, for example, going to work, which is the main one in proportion, in percentage, doing purchase, visits, studies, going for leisure, restaurant, and so on. And we also took advantage of the analysis of innovation ecosystems to build company cards. I will introduce you just a bit later. So now let's play and let's get started. So the story here, you've got the storyline. We're in Paris, and the mayor decided to launch a call for projects to solve problems generated by mobility in the Grand Paris in the perspective of the Olympic Games, right? So what are you? You are companies belonging to this mobility ecosystem. And of course, you've got your own business experience and knowledge, and you will have to follow this innovation methodology in order to find really interesting problems encountered by users in certain situations for which transportation modes and solutions do not provide enough relief. And the challenge is you have a limited time and a limited budget. So let's get started with the choice of your company, and we will move to wooclap.com with this code here to vote. So you will you will be asked to vote for either Mobi Companion, which is a IT company. So this is all based on more or less existing companies. You will recognize them. Mob and Park. That's a little hint to Zen Park here. Mob Insurance. So the insurance company, which is also interested in people's health and psychological health and well-being also. And the Mobi Shuttle company, which offers transportation services based on shuttles that navigate autonomously, right? So I will stop that and move to the... So how do I manage that? Share again. Partager this one. Yeah. Can you see the screen? Perfect. Hopefully. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So you can connect to wooclap with the code or on your telephone. And then we will go to the first question. So, which company do you wish to work for? Mobi Companion, Mob and Park, Mob Insurance, or Mobi Shuttle? Let's go. So, autonomous shuttles are ahead. Okay, it's getting confirmed. Few seconds to go. I don't know how many of us. Right. Are we set? Okay. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. So I think the group wants to go for Mobi Shuttle. Yeah. Good. So now we will go back to our game. Stop. And then share again. Here. Okay. Should be all right. So now we're on Mobi Shuttle. And then you will discover on this card then that you have an initial knowledge and you've got initial investigation strategies I will explain later, right? So next. Okay. So first stage. So your company card is not real time, right? So it's Mobi Companion. So I chose my company and here I'm at the beginning of this path. So I access to 2 cards, which are specific investigation strategies, and I've got a specific knowledge. So in the context of AVs, I will also have some specific knowledge. So if I move forward, so my initial budget, I've got 50 read coins and 50 read clocks, and I will buy with my team cards for investigation strategies, to know more about the problems, to know more about the users. So here I will buy these cards depending on how much they cost, and at the end I should be here at about 0, and I should have spent all my money and time for that. So what do I gain and what do I choose with my group? Well, I have to have a look at a lot of cards. For example, I can choose to visit professional exhibitions like the Autonomy Salon event in Paris, to know about the latest solutions, and then I can access some knowledge. I can have a look at competing products and services to do a benchmarking. And I can also conduct a very in-depth literature review, providing me some more knowledge. And here you can find some 6 dots of knowledge in this case. Right. So each investigation strategies allows me to have a lot of knowledge on different topics. So now I hold, depending on what I choose for investigation strategies, interviews, and so on, I hold 20 cards of deep knowledge. And for that, knowing quite a lot, I receive rewards points on user profiles, users, and problems, because I know much more now about that. So for example, on this knowledge card here I know what I showed you before. It's a literature piece of knowledge where I can be aware of the groups of people and the key factors, the challenges they face for their mobility. So I've got reward points for the user profiles of 5, not much on the usages, and I know a bit more about problems. I've got 2 points. Now, what do I do? With all that, with my points, with all what I gained, I'm able to buy some user profiles, some usages, and some problems cards that are interesting for me in order to develop my innovation. And I have them in my hands, but so far I don't own them as such, because I have to answer knowledge questions in order to unlock them. So to be able really to innovate based on these cards. And this will be possible if if I have chosen with my group the right knowledge cards at the beginning. So for example, here I can buy students' profiles. So I know a bit more about their mobility habits. Situation, which is accompanying others, taking children to school, for instance, and problems such as, for instance, the loss of public space. Okay, now let's have a try with unlocking a card. For example, unlocking the elderly travelers card, right? So let's go back to WooClap, and I will ask you what are the characteristics of elderly travelers in terms of problems encountered. So let's go back to my WooClap. Écran partagé, right? Écran. Off we go. So I will go to my second question here. Right. So unlock your user profile card on elderly travelers. What are the characteristics of elderly travelers? One, it's a limited ability and strength to move and need to be punctual, or limited ability and strength to move and difficulties in reading signs and timetables, or third, fear of being lost. Off you go. What do you think? So answer 2, 100%. A bit of answer 1. Okay, this one is quite easy. Just a few seconds to go. Right, 7 of you. So let's go. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. Answer number 2 is the right one, according to the knowledge that would be provided to you if you had it in your hand. So very good. Bravo to you. Yeah, it's the answer number 2. Good. So you're able to unlock elderly travelers. You have them in your game. Okay, so I would go back to this one. Very good. Now, okay, so now I have unlocked my my cards, my profiles, my situations, the public space. And now I'm nearly there because I have to propose some value buckets that is a combination of profile situations and problems that should be really important to innovate on. For that, I've got new information. I can have a look at the solutions cards, all the solutions that already exist. And I'm also provided with what is called efficiency profiles. I will show them to you. And then I need to propose 5 value buckets, which are 5 interesting ideas that are making sense for my company. So existing solutions, for example, car sharing, but you've got many others, I think nine of them. And you are provided with the efficiency profiles of the solutions, which are curves like that. I won't give you too much detail about that, but it's their efficiency to solve the problems I identified in certain situations. So I have to have a look at that in order to inform my decision on value buckets. And then the 5th game challenge is to provide the value buckets, for example, for Mobi Companion, but for you, it would be for Mobi Shuttle. That's a combination. For example, we can propose that for workers working on a day-to-day basis, which are not non-transportation workers, commuting to work, so the commuters, or to education, but in this kind to work, and the question of waste of time. So that would be a first value bucket, which is 3 of this 3 of this card I want to innovate on for, thanks to a service for Mobi Companion. And now the last stage is that my propositions, my 5 propositions, will be evaluated by the facilitator. And how is that done? Thanks to, that's how it is made very challenging with hidden data. So I don't know what's going to happen to me. And thanks to this hidden data, in fact, some knowledge on what all the cases provided are encapsulated in matrices we provided in advance. So now I'm granted with a score on the opportunity for the company and also on the usefulness for the travelers. So my aim here to innovate is to have the maximal opportunity for the company, but also the maximal usefulness for users, and to be as good as possible on the 2 fronts. So now what's my final score? I will show you on this table. What I show you is the pilot test we conducted with 3 teams. So we had team 1 and team 2 of innovation experts working on the pilot. So here you've got the summary of the cards they bought. They obtained 20 cards and 18 cards. The points they gained, the selected cards they got, how much they were able to unlock answering the questions, and the score of opportunity and usefulness in each case. And in the 3rd team, it was mobility experts, which were not experts in the innovation in that case, and they did exactly the same and performed 10 on opportunity and 6 on usefulness. But we also discussed the scores. That was the idea, to have an open discussion in the end, and have really be able to justify why this would be a good opportunity to innovate, right? So that would be it. Takeaways. So this serious game is proved in the literature, it is said, but it also appeared to be an efficient introductory tool for beginners for an engineering design method here for innovation. Sorry. It indeed raised the awareness of participants on the very importance of knowing a lot before trying to innovate and trying to define the problem seriously. And the aim of this method is to show that before going on solution finding, you spend in average 2/3 of time on problem definition and only 1/3 on solution. Mobility in this case, sorry, appeared to be a very motivating social topic for serious game design. And it was very enjoyable to use all the material we gained in the chair to have this game come to life. And we also need to carry on going on this design for the solution design and business design part. So this first part of the game was played within 2 hours, and we expect to have the whole game played for 1 day. And it was also tested as a pilot with students, but I was not part of the test, so I don't know, but I think it went quite well with the students as well. And last, I would like to ask some viewpoints for a player's point of view or a designer point of view. I don't know if Yiming is around, I think not, but maybe we have a player in the room. Jacques, would you like to go and tell us about it?
I was part of the mobility experts, so we had this little discussion in the end how to define usefulness and so on. But otherwise, I think I can just build up a little bit on what Flore just said already before. For me, the problem definition in the beginning is, I'm not from an innovation background or design innovation background. So the clear definition of a problem to start before, and not just starting with all the preconceived ideas and solutions you already have in your head, is, I think, one of the most methodological takeaways, let's say. But otherwise, on a broader level with the serious games, and it's not the only one I've done in the last couple of years. For me, it's the nice thing is that you are forgetting that you're learning something. You're not sitting there and you're somebody just standing in front of you and telling you you have to understand this and do this and do this. But you just play, and all the little cards and the little elements within the game make you forget that you're learning something, but you're learning it still. And I know, like, it's been, I think, 2 months or so when it was. And I still remember very much all the different parts which have been done as part of the game, while there might have been other presentations 2 months ago where I don't remember everything that detailed anymore. So I think I think it's a little bit of a prototype. So when it feels more like a game, or even more like a game, I think it can go even further. And I think what's a challenge is to find what you started with in the presentation, the balance between game and outcome, or the fun part and the learning effect. Yeah. Because it's nice if it's fun, but then it's not the goal, but it's still nice if you can enjoy it. So I think that's if a serious game can manage that, it's super nice. And this one was fun enough to learn, I think, what we were supposed to learn, or, well, in this case, I think we're also supposed to test if it works, but it still achieved its goal as well to get across the element of the RD methodology.
Very good.
That's all I can say.
Okay, so that would be it. Thank you for your kind attention. You got questions? If you wish to switch on your cameras, you can, of course.
There's a question from Adam.
Adam?
Yes, thank you very much, Flore. It's a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot. So I think that's also a very important experience for me. I have a couple of questions, actually. So the first, I'm wondering if serious games are mainly a pedagogical tool, or can they also be a tool to explore and to find out new ideas and outcomes? So is it just used to teach, or can we also use it in a context where we want to come up with new solutions that are not known a priori? So that's the first question. Second question, okay, so even if it's limited to pedagogical or not, so maybe we can use it in a company context to come up with new ideas, or a group context to come up with new solutions. My question would be, do you think, or do you have any information about the use of serious games as an effective tool to raise public awareness about some topics? Because that this might be a very interesting use of these kind of tools, which is public usually are not like students who are ready to be in a classroom and to learn from it. So maybe it can be an interesting way to reach awareness about a specific issue. And I'm wondering if you already have information, or do you have an opinion about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, for the two interesting questions. So for the first one, I presented this serious game as mainly educational product as such. But of course, I'm also interested in another part, and that's exactly what you're mentioning. I've got a paper I can share with you, really interesting, on the use of serious game in co-creation approaches, meaning that what is really interesting in designing a serious game as a way to come up and to reflect on very complex situations or topics, such as energy management, you know about. So this paper is on that. The interest of the serious game is to provide a safe environment where people are not going to be judged and where it's very safe to explore. So that's one of the strengths of the serious games. And that's why they can be used exactly in this purpose. So it's less common, but it exists. And I've got some nice references on that. And I surely would like to go for that in the future in the chair. In a certain, of course, it can be pushed quite a way forward or less developed, because developing a serious game is quite time consuming, but then we can have different ways of doing it more or less in depth. And about the second question, which is also very important, there are more and more experiences of serious games test with the public bodies. And I had the opportunity to follow a seminar on the future scenario. I think one of the first pictures I showed, which was especially tested with public bodies. So I could also provide you with some examples of serious game on the future planning, which are used with public bodies, which is a very specific audience. So this is being done and successfully being done, because it drives them away from the day-to-day worries and try to vision a bit more about well, shared issues and complex issues. So hopefully it answers your question, but I'll be happy to talk about it later.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Flore. Great. Thank you.
Mariana?
And I was wondering if there is a way, or is there an interest to evaluate the learning after the game,
Yeah.
or if there are strategies for this?
There is, and it's especially very important. So within the scope of the PhD, we unfortunately didn't have time to develop that quite a lot. So there was a very basic feedback, but there's once again a lot of literature on the educational domain, on the evaluation of outcomes of serious gaming, and you've got a lot of grids with very specific questions balancing the competency serious part and the learning part and the fun part. So it's really it has to be balanced, and there are a lot of specific questions to address that. Yeah, but it needs more elaboration than what we had time to do with Yiming for this PhD. But it's a very central topic in education, really.